Is it on Michael? I'm alcoholic.
Michael.
Yeah, it's good to be here today. I'm obviously quite nervous. A lot of new faces, and I don't really get to come down to this meeting that often. Yeah, I guess I'll just share, my experience, strength and hope with you guys today, and hopefully I can give you guys a message. I think to start, sort of, how did I get here today is probably the best place. Why am I sitting in this chair today? And when I came into the way that I actually came into treatment was by a bit of default. I didn't want to. I'd been going in and out of treatment facilities for 5 years prior to getting sober, and I think where you I'd made a decision to sort of seek oblivion. I didn't really know where it would end, but I'd sort of just let go of life because I'd given up. I couldn't get well. I couldn't stop using every day. I suffered from extreme, as I'm sure we can all relate, just extreme obsession, compulsion, physical cravings, and just spiritually not alive. I think I was just really a human being that had a heart beating, but there was nothing more than that. I had over the years, obviously the consequences of my actions had obviously progressed in line with my alcoholism, and they started to become very real. But I didn't know of a way. I'm not knocking any of these institutions, but there were times where I did feel very desperate. I would go to church, or I went and got baptized. I would go speak to a priest. I would speak to psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, treatment facilities that weren't 12-step facilities, family, friends. Whatever sort of means that were at my disposal. I tried those ways. I obviously, we don't really, it doesn't really come natural to me, the alcoholic, to surrender very easily. That's not in my nature. So the idea that I could control whatever I was going through was always there with me, and I was very obsessed over controlling, my life and the way that I wanted it to go. But the reality is that I know actually throughout my whole life I didn't actually even have the ability to be honest with myself. I didn't actually know how to do that. I'd never been exposed to a set of tools or to some form of program that could bring about the significant change that was required to get well. And I also thought that through all of that time, I thought that I had a substance problem. There was always the idea of, if I can just get rid of the substances, then I can get better. I didn't understand that, and even still today, what I'm learning about, myself and how this disease works and the type of disease I have is that I think fundamentally behind the substances and behind even the, I'd say life in itself, is that I have a disease that tells me that I'm separate from you, and I have this void that I feel needs to be filled. And what happens is with that, behavior that is not in line with a spiritual solution would be more than in line with my ego, or alcoholism, that type of behavior. And what that does is the more and more that I try and fill it with behavior that goes contrary to this program, the further and further away I get from you, and the more and more I need to continue to fill it, and it can't be filled. And what happens is that some of the in the literature is that it's a threefold disease. So it's the mental obsession, physical craving, and you don't need to crave substances. You can physically crave anything in line with alcoholism. It's got nothing to do with substances. And then obviously the spiritual malady. So it's like an electric fence. I think if you behave more in line with that type of behavior, you turn that fence on, and it's very difficult to turn it off. So this will never change. That's alcoholism for me. That's my understanding. That's been my experience, and it's very real. 100% real. I've got more than enough evidence to support what I'm saying to you guys. So I didn't want to go into treatment, and I remember the day I went into treatment, I'd been using throughout that week, and for me at that stage, toward the end of my alcoholism, I was locked up in a bathroom. I had all the curtains closed, extremely afraid. Too afraid to stay in there and too afraid to come out. And that's I think it's quite a scary place to be when you lose, the ability to know what's real and what isn't real anymore, and there was nothing left. My wife and my child, they had left. I'd been fired from my job. I hadn't paid rent in 2 months. I was staying in a place that I was about to get kicked out of. And someone came to the flat that morning to try and reach out to me, and long story short, they ended up making a call to someone that was working at the treatment center, who happened to be a family friend of my parents and someone that I knew from quite young. So it was quite weird how that happened, because the only reason that I actually felt a little bit of comfort and trust to actually want to go back into treatment was because this guy was there. I felt that there was someone familiar there that I could go and see. And I went into treatment, and so 10 days after I was in treatment, I ran away from the treatment center, and I got down onto Scott Street here by the petrol station, and I was asking people for money. There used to be payphones there. They're not there anymore. I looked this morning. And I was phoning my girlfriend, my wife at the time, and I said to her that she needs to come and fetch me, because these people are crazy. They want to, they don't ever want me to come back out into society. I believe that I'd been sort of sent there, I'd been set up to go there, and it was sort of like lock the door and throw away the key. Obviously she was, to hear that, she must have been thinking, geez, like what type of place is this, and whatever, And luckily, she phoned the treatment center, and the advice given to her was that if she did truly love me, that she mustn't go and fetch me. She must leave me. And so I was sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting, and like some time passed, maybe an hour or two, and no one had come. I asked for money again, go back to the payphone, phoning, where are you? And no one was coming. And fortunately for me, I think that I had what they call a moment of clarity, and I was just next to the Blue Marlin Hotel, in between the petrol station and the hotel, and I was sitting on the pavement, and all of a sudden I just started to reflect on my whole life. I could see myself on the pavement. I could see the way people were sort of looking at me. I had a pair of slops on, tracksuit pants, and a t-shirt, and there I was, and what had happened is I'd basically gone through. I could just really see clearly that I'd gone through my whole life and reflected, and it was the first honest thing I've ever done in my life, because I'd realized that everything that led to that point of me being on the side of the road with nothing left, as I was in my condition, mentally, physically, and spiritually, was as a result of my own choices. I'd actually done it to myself. There was absolutely there was not one thing in my whole life, not my childhood or my parents' marriage or anything I didn't like anything that ever happened. It wasn't because of that. It was because I never knew how to cope with life, and that was my best effort. And that's what I did to myself. Besides what I've obviously done to everybody else, sort of leading up there. And from there it was an extremely moving experience for me, and very emotional. I was absolutely crying my eyes out. It was very painful. It was a very painful realization to accept, but it was true. And after a couple moments, I got up, and if you stand up there by the Blue Marlin, you can see the highway like in front of you. And just before I come into treatment, there was a doctor's rooms that was down on Scott Street where you go get a checkup. So I was, okay, well, what are you going to do now? You're going to, the highway's there, and you can sort of go back to oblivion, and you now know what that is about, or you can go back to. You can go to the doctor's rooms and ask him to call the treatment center and go back there with your tail between your legs and give it another go. And I decided that I really wanted to live. I didn't know what I needed to do. I didn't know what would even happen, but I knew that I wanted to live for myself, not for anybody else. And I went to the doctor's rooms, and they called the treatment center, and when someone was coming back in, they didn't run to my rescue. When someone was coming back into town, they would fetch me. So I sat with that a little bit longer, and I was very eager for someone to come. And I think it was about an hour or two later, someone came, and I went back up there, and it wasn't an easy day. It's not. I don't recommend running away from treatment, but I had a shift in my attitude for sure, and I decided to follow the suggestion of ask, listen, and do as I was told, and it worked. Yeah, it did. it was the place where I went through each different step thoroughly. I couldn't have been more honest if I tried. I had my sponsor in there, and the other counselors that absolutely loved me unconditionally, and actually loved me enough to carry me through that process. And I learned some amazing things going through the program and treatment. It was where I had, I'm not going to say I formed a relationship with God, because I know that relationship's always there. It's me that blocks it. It's not like God sort of deserts me. It doesn't work like that. It's always there. So what happened is I became, going through each different step and each different layer, I started to become open, and I was able to get connected to God. And so for me up until this point, I think there's two of the most profound experiences still to this day that have ever happened to me. One was on the side of the street, the moment of clarity, and the other was just finishing step 3, because I had a very powerful spiritual experience by myself in treatment. And if it weren't for what I experienced in that moment, the joy, and then knowing that God does exist, and He does love me, and it's a very hard feeling to describe and put into words. But I don't think I would be sitting here today if I didn't have that to hold on to. Because I now know the truth of this program. And treatment was great. Recovery was amazing in there. I really did truly find what I was looking for my whole life. Even the questions in the step working guide, the questions are, when you're in that state of where you can't tell the difference between reality and not, you sort of have all these things going on in your head, and you wish someone could ask you like the perfect question so you could answer it, and no one can. But the step working guide, it does it like to a T. It asks every single question is the exact question that you would want asked, but no one's ever been able to ask you. So it was a multitude of feelings going through. Coming back to life is an extremely good feeling. Getting back on the right track, and starting to feel love and joy and serenity and peace and clarity and all of these things is an extremely profound feeling to go through. But at the same time, I didn't take it lightly. I took it very serious, because I was in there for a limited amount of time, and I didn't want to go through this again. I didn't ever want to go through this again. So there was a big willingness on my part to do whatever I needed to do. And I must say I've been very fortunate in my recovery. Very fortunate. The desire to use it was lifted, and still remains lifted today. I don't have a desire. I have not had a desire to pick up a substance in 11 years, 1 month, and a couple of days. not once. Which is, you know, I don't know what more proof one would need, because I used every day of my life. Some of the things that have happened, I mean, I can only bring it to like the grace of God, you know, because I've never really truly felt some of the things that have happened in my life. I've never really truly felt I've deserved them, because I'm not necessarily the nicest person at times. I have bad behavior sometimes. You know, I struggle. I can be really dishonest, manipulative, divisive. There's a lot of things about myself that I don't like, but I'm very aware of you know who I am today, and basically I don't really like to talk about the things that I've received or I've done in recovery. I've always liked to sort of just keep those things to myself, because I don't want to come across as someone who's like bragging or boastful, or you know, or I did a nice thing for, you know, I've never been like that. But I really I think that it's important to also say, like, you know, from someone that was locked up in a bathroom, you know, all those years ago, to where I am today, I have amazing relationships with many different types of people. You know, I work for an extremely large company. I run an extremely large division in a massive business. Some of the people that I sit and have meetings with, and they must be the most educated, borderline professors. I can go into these boardrooms and I have these discussions, and they sit and they listen to me, and I listen to them, and we, you know, I'm you know, a trusted right-hand man to a massive CEO of this company. And there's a lot of very strange things that have happened in my life, and believe me, I started from the only thing I had when I came out of treatment was this. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have money. I didn't have a car. I didn't have many friends. I was actually financially, I was in minus. I started actually minus quite a lot. You know, today I own a house that I bought 8 years ago. That's you know, I'm sorry, I need to say this. I'm not trying to mean this as humbly as possible. You need to understand it's not normal. It's bizarre. I have a house that's paid off. I'm busy building a new house in a new area. Both my kids go to really good schools. I'm completely self-supporting. I support some family members outside of myself. On many occasions, I've been able to be there for many different types of friends and people. It's a big change. It's a big difference to what I used to be like. So I can only bring it to the program. You know, I can only bring that life to what I've learned in the program. And I think whatever I had to do to maintain it is I've had to try and stay connected to recovery and try and stay connected to the fellowship and meetings. And I haven't always done that, actually. You know, I think that think one of the biggest messages I want to get across is that the foundation of recovery is absolutely everything, because when you go back out into society, when I come into this room, I feel okay because I know that everybody, it's like a relief, because I know that I'm amongst people that are just like me. But out there, people are not like me at all, and there's a lot of things going on out there, plenty of things. You've got relationships at home, you've got bills, you've got work, you've got this, you've got that, you've got a lot of things that can make you tell yourself that you're too busy for recovery. And I've been there, I've done it. I've had a phase. I had a phase in my recovery where I got involved in gambling, and it started as some form of entertainment, and it progressed to me gambling every second or third day, and losing a lot of money, and not just the financial side, but I became sick, and that was quite difficult. It was quite difficult process to go through to eventually let that go and apply my program to that behavior. I think that when they say that we practice these principles in all our affairs, they really mean that, because I've got a lot of different affairs in my life, and I can be quite selective on when and when not I want to apply the program, and I don't recommend that. It's the same thing. It's like half measures availed us nothing. Every time I've tried to practice a particular area of my life on my own will, I end up unmanageable, and it might seem insignificant to you at the time, but it either is one of your affairs or it isn't. It's black or it's white. It can't be. There's no grey area to it. I'm a very susceptible person to alcoholic behavior when I'm not working a program. I don't need substances to try and fix myself. I can fix off people, I can fix off shopping, I can fix off gambling, I can fix off gym, I can fix off anything. If it's there, I can fix off it. And yes, there is a moral issue with that, because generally in my experience, when fixing on or when acting out on alcoholic behavior, it's definitely coming at the expense of another person's well-being. Definitely. So that's where the moral issue comes in. Because if I'm not doing it initially, I'm definitely going to be harming another person. So that's where that moral issue comes in for me, which is revolving around step 4. The other problem is that when I get wrapped up in alcoholic behavior, the obsession of the mind comes back. And that must be the worst, for me, that's the worst part of this disease, is that obsession of the mind. It robs me of any chance of solution. And it's not related to substances at all. That's the misconception with this disease. It's got nothing to do with substances. The substances is just another form of fix. Just like gym could be, just like relationships could be, just like money could be, just like work could be, just like anything. That's all it is. It's just another thing. Probably kill you quicker because it's chemically based, and there is definitely more, a more intensified reaction, more amplified quickly. But the other stuff will kill you as well. Just take you a little bit longer. I think today where I'm at is luckily, I think for me, as my recovery has evolved, I've been exposed to a little bit more than I can handle, because it's very different to the beginning of recovery, the first year, the second year, the third. The things that I used to think were accurate and true and right then are so different. It was just that I couldn't sort of see far enough into my life. And as times evolved, I think where I'm at today is that there's really no place to run and hide. You can't go run and hide in alcoholic behavior. It will work a little bit, but then it stops working, and then you're going to go try to find something else, and then you're going to go. It's like a game of ping pong. There's really no place to run and hide. You're either committed into this program, or you're not. You got to, So for me, I want to try to save myself the trouble, and not waste time. There's no escape from this disease. There is no escape. It's the most important thing for me that I'm seeing today in my recovery is honesty. Self-honesty. Without it, I'm never going to be happy, joyous, and free. It's not about things or about other people or about it's about my relationship with God. I'm not conning anyone. I'm only conning myself if I'm trying to find shortcuts. And above all else, I just want to be happy, joyous, and free. That's the best version of me, and there's a specific way to get to that, which is in the program. I wish I could sit here and tell you guys that I've been like a saint, but I'm not. I'm as alcoholic as they come. I've had many episodes, even in recovery, where I've acted just as mad as I was in active. I don't cope well when I'm under that obsession and all of that fear and emotions and that void. I short circuit completely. So I always find myself coming back with my tail in between my legs all the time, because and then I go back out and think there's an easier, softer way, and there isn't. But in fairness as well, it is life, and life can be difficult, but it doesn't need to be. It also doesn't need to be. I get in the way too much, I think a couple months ago for me, something came up that I think it had been there for a long time, and I've been going through this process with my sponsor. And so the first thing was to recommit to recovery, recommit to the programs, start going to meet, getting my meetings up again, start reaching out and so I would definitely I want to caution people actually that do build up some clean time in recovery. Don't try not to forget about the basics. Try not to forget about what has always worked for you, because for me, I've definitely had times as I've accumulated a lot of things in recovery, and then it starts becoming about me again. It very much starts I start to become too busy for the fellowship, too busy for the meetings, you know. So, yeah, I think all in all, for me today, I generally do have a peace in my life. You know, I generally have a set routine. Life is a lot more stable today, a lot more secure. There's a lot more direction. Just a different person in many ways to what I used to be. Just don't do a lot of the things I used to do. And yeah, I think it's. I'd love to sit here and take the credit for it all, but it's all thanks to the program and my sponsor and the meetings and the people and everything that I've been exposed to in these rooms. That's what's changed my life. And a lot of other people's lives have changed as well as a result of it. So, yeah, I think just to close off, there's nowhere to run and hide for me in this program. That's where I'm at, actually, in my recovery. I think that the last few years I've gone through different phases of fixing off work, fixing off money, fixing off gambling, fixing off, you know, along the way. And it's just the way that it is. When I've dealt with one part of my life, another part pops up, and then, you know, you deal with that, and then another one, and I think the part that I'm going through at the moment, I think, is going to be an amazing part for me. I think it's something that's been with me for a very long time, and I think that when I get through this, I think it's going to make the world of difference to my recovery and to my life. Absolutely. So, yeah, I just want to thank everybody for listening to me today and hearing my share, and I wish you guys all the best in your own recoveries, and hope to see you again next year. Thanks for letting me share.